WBDK.
Good morning and welcome to 96.7 WBDK. I'm Mike Tracy, the host this morning for Ask the Expert, and the expert we have this morning is Todd, the Tree Doctor Burke from Dave's Tree Services in Egg Harbor, covering all of Door and Kewaunee County. So welcome to Ask the Expert here with Todd Burke, Todd, the Tree Doctor Burke. And Todd, let's start out with talking about you being a certified arborist. What does that mean?
Okay, certified arborist, it's actually through the ISA, which is an International Society of Arboriculture. And what that is they put together this testing program that arborists can get into. They go through their quite extensive training program, and then you're tested on multiple things in the tree world, basically. And you have to take tests and pass certain domains within their test. And once you completed that, then you're an ISA certified arborist.
And I know that Dave's Tree Service, everybody knows Dave's Tree Services here in Door County. Everybody knows that you guys remove trees and trim limbs and things like that. But really what your expertise is saving trees, and that's really your goal, isn't it?
Absolutely. If there's no doubt there's trees that need to be cut, and for us it's pretty easy to point those out. But if in a lot of instances trees are cut down because people believe that's the only choice. There's a lot of instances where trees can be treated, they can be sprayed, they can be fertilized, and a tree that you think was in pretty rough shape a lot of times can actually be brought back to be a real nice tree.
Any guess on how many trees you've saved in your career?
No.
Lots of them, right?
Lots of them.
And if you have a tree that's just not looking good, not looking healthy, call Todd, the Tree Doctor Burke at Dave's Tree Services, and he'd be glad to come out and do an assessment and tell you if he thinks he can save it and what it's going to take to do that. Mm-hmm. So, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
That's awesome. So we're going to be here with Todd, the Tree Doctor Burke, until 8 o'clock this morning. You can call in 920-746-9430, and you can ask very specific tree questions to Todd here. But we do have some questions that have already come in that we're going to get started with. And Todd, you ready? Rapid fire?
Let's go.
Okay, let's do it. First and foremost, one of the biggest questions that has been submitted already is the winter that we've had with all this snow. The weight of the snow seems to have crushed a lot of shrubs. What can people do about it?
Well, a lot of this damage you're seeing with small trees and shrubs from the heavy winter, a lot of those we've noticed is right under the roof line of your house or garage, where a lot of the snow comes off the roof, and it piles up on your plantings that are right basically underneath the edge of the roof there. Most of them are smaller shrubs, ornamental type globular things, pyramidal type, cedars or multi-stem cedars. And generally what happens is the heavy snow and wet snow and then freezing snow, it pushes these apart. And what happens is, if it happens early in the year, they stay bent apart and distorted like that for the rest of the winter, basically. So the best thing you can do for that is, as soon as you can get out there, and as soon as the snow melts enough and it isn't frozen, to try to shake those plants off and try to remove as much of that hard stuff as you can. A lot of times the extent of the damage, you won't know that until spring is here for sure. Everything is melted and then you can see the damage that's there. A lot of times you can take some small rope or string, pull them back together, kind of tie them up. If something is really obviously busted, you may have to cut those pieces off. If they're really, really bad and you try trimming them and they don't look very good, you might not be left with a whole lot of options other than replacing them.
Well, believe it or not, spring will be here sooner than we think. We've had a long, tough winter. We're all waiting for it, but we've had some signs. The calendar says it's coming real quick. Yeah. And it's daylight savings, and there's all kinds of signs of spring. So it's going to turn quickly. Yeah. So these are some good pointers for folks as the snow melts and continues to melt, to really take a look at the damage and some pointers that you just gave on how to take care of that and fix that. Yep. So that's great. Anything else on the snow load on the shrubs?
Other than right now, it's the weather. Yep, it's supposed to be getting nicer, but there's still a lot of snow, and it's going to be it's tough right now to tell the damage, but you will be able to shortly.
Next question, and again, 746-9430. You can call in live and ask your questions here with the expert, Todd the Tree Doctor Burke from Dave's Tree Services. Next question, Todd. Did the extended cold and snow hurt a particular type or species of trees more than others?
Yes, I think it does. What we've seen, and not only this year's been really bad, but other years, other winters in the past as well. I think it's particularly hard on the evergreens, the pines and the cedars. And we noticed this up by our shop in Jacksonport. Egg Harbor now. We notice it up on our pines and cedars too because we're out in the open and we get a lot of wind. So what you're going to see probably worse than anything over a hard winter is your evergreens. Evergreens don't totally go dormant like a deciduous tree, a tree that would lose its leaves. So there's a certain amount of moisture in these evergreens at the ends of the leaves and the needles. So you're going to get a lot of winter drying. These cold, dry, very typical windy winter years we have. You're going to get a lot of drying with these evergreens. And I started noticing it already, but come spring and into early summer, you're really going to notice it. And you're going to be driving around the county, you're going to say, my goodness, what's happening to these evergreens? They're looking yellow, off greenish, yellow looking color. And it's mostly due to the winter drying. You're going to see that with the evergreens a lot.
And the extreme cold made a difference this year.
Absolutely. It'll actually dry the moisture right out of the end of those leaves and needles on those evergreens.
So what is it going to take for them to come back?
It's just going to take time.
Okay.
And it's not feasible if you got 5 acres of pine trees or a big stand of them. But if you got a couple that are close to your house, the more moisture you can get to them, the better. Obviously, we're going to have snow runoff this spring, and they're going to get a lot of moisture. But more and more water never hurts. It's just going to take time for that to go through them. As far as the deciduous trees, the really long extended cold can actually dry out the buds too of the new growth, the new leaves that want to get started. It can actually be very hard on them as well.
Welcome back to Ask the Expert with Todd, the Tree Doctor Burke. And Todd, we've had some great questions answered already. We're going to get right into another one that was submitted here. And that is, are there trees in Door County infested with the emerald ash borer?
Well, that's a pretty good question, considering the hype we've been having about EAB the last 2, 3, 4 years here. In Door County, to be real honest, it's not been positively identified. Do I think we have it here? I think we may. There has been some people who have their second homes in our area here in Door County, and where they reside for the most part, they're permanent residents. They're struck with EAB, and they know the devastation that it can have and what it does to the trees. So we'll get some phone calls. They want us to treat their ash tree up here no matter what, because they see what it can do.
Now that you mentioned that, is there a treatment that can be done to prevent that from happening?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Kind of finishing where I was at there, some people absolutely want us to try to save them. I myself think it's just a little too early. What they call for, the experts call for, is if you're in an area where you know you're about 15 to 30 miles from an infected area, you should consider to start to treat them. And Green Bay has had a case of it already, so we're kind of on the borderline, but they can be treated. If you can treat an ash tree before it's infected, that's obviously by far the best you can do. Very, very highly effective for that ash tree not getting it. If an ash tree is already infected, it could be somewhere between 30 and 40% infected, and you can tell by the looks of the tree. They can actually be treated and with pretty good results to bring that tree back.
Okay.
But a preventative would be an annual thing. And there again, I think our area is just a little too early, but we have done some of them, and that option is definitely there for folks who are maybe really be worried about it.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So not a high urgency right now, not high alert, but
I wouldn't.
think about it, right?
Yes.
Keep an eye on it.
Yes.
Okay, and you can recognize that, and if it looks like it's starting to happen, you can certainly take care of that.
Sure. Yes, we can.
Let's go to the next question. What can be done for rodent damage? For example, you notice bark at the bottom of the tree was eaten off, things like that. What can be done for that?
Yeah, we've been noticing that a lot, and not only this bad winter, but usually every winter. The voles and rabbits and mice, they'll chew the bottom of a tree, they're going after the bark. Food source is pretty limited in the middle of winter. So the best thing you could do, and that would be late fall before you even get snow, is a lot of trees, unless it's in the middle of your yard and you mow it real nice, a lot of trees is going to have grass and weeds growing up at the base of them. That's going to be a little haven and a little safe spot for those little critters in the winter, with the tree being there and then grass and so forth. So the best thing you could do is remove all the grass and weeds from the base of the tree and go to a hardware store. A lot of places would have like a plastic tubing. They make special tree wrap you can get. Put it around the base of that tree, basically about as high as you think the snow is going to be. I mean, it doesn't have to be an exact science, but kind of use your judgment, and that will help tremendously with rodent damage, because they can do enough damage where it could have a severe impact on that plant for you.
Yeah, so not just visually, but it really could hurt the tree itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Anytime you get more than like maybe 50% of that tree chewed around, that's going to be hard on that tree.
Wow. Okay, I never realized that. Wow, I'm learning a lot today already.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're talking about the base of trees, let's talk about mulch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting into that because this morning on the shopping show, we are going to be opening up certificates for mulch, hardwood mulch, and also cedar mulch from Dave's Tree Services, from your very location. Mm-hmm. And mulch is, most people think mulch is there to make my landscaping look nice and things like that, but there's a functional purpose for that as well.
Sure, yes there is. Mulch is definitely beneficial for trees, not only but visually, but it's going to do your tree tremendous help throughout the year. For one, if you put it down in the spring, it's obviously it's going to look nice, it's going to smell good, it's going to spruce your yard up, but it's also going to help keep the moisture at the base of that tree where you want it, around the root system. It's going to keep grasses from growing up. There you go with the grasses again for rodent damage in the winter. It's going to prevent the grasses from growing up. It's going to help hold the moisture in, and it's more beneficial for the roots. And another thing it's going to do is it's going to keep the lawnmowers and the weed eaters away from the base of that tree, which is damaging the bark as well.
Wow, some really good tips. I didn't realize all that. That's incredible. Welcome back to Ask the Expert here with Todd the Tree Doctor Burke from Dave's Tree Services. And rapid fire, we're going to wrap it up here. We got about 5 minutes left before we go to the news break and go to the shopping show this morning. But let's talk about what people should think about and be the most important thing to look at for trees right now instead of waiting until the leaves come out.
Well, what you're going to see right now, a lot easier than to wait for a nice day when the leaves are out and you want to walk around the yard, is you're going to see bad spots in trees right now. You're going to see big limbs that may have busted in the wind. They could be hanging there waiting to fall. You're going to see holes in the trees, cracks. That's the type of stuff you're going to be able to see right now versus when the leaves are on and you won't be able to see anything besides a green ball, basically. But when these trees have bad spots, over the winter makes them a lot worse, because what's going to happen is water's going to get in there, it's going to freeze, and it's going to open up these bad spots. It's going to make a split worse. It's going to make a crack worse. Water's going to sit in these holes, and it's going to freeze, and it's going to thaw and freeze. And it makes a damaged tree even more damaged. And a bad tree going into the winter could be a very bad tree now and a potential hazard to somebody walking down the sidewalk or your house. So these freezing winter conditions can make a bad tree really bad right now. So it's something you'd want to check for now, because when the leaves are on the trees, a lot of this stuff you can't see, and now this bad spot is just an accident waiting to happen.
Okay, so what can folks do about it if they see these bad spots?
Well, I would make a phone call as soon as you can, depending on the severity of the situation and how you think it is. But these bad spots could be a real bad problem if something's ready to come down on your house. You definitely want to get that taken care of as soon as you could.
Okay. Now that spring is around the corner. Again, we talked about that earlier. The ideal planting time for new trees is coming up. What would be the most important thing to look for in the selection and the planting of the tree and putting it in the ground?
Well, we could probably talk all day just on planting trees. It is, I feel, very important when you're going to plant a tree. But it all starts with selection. You want a proper selection. You want to figure out the right tree for the place you want to put it. You don't want to just put anything in a spot. You want to figure out what's going to grow good there. Soil conditions. You don't want to put a huge growing tree 5 feet from your house. It all depends what you want the tree for and where you want to put it. But then you want to, I like to say, stay away from these big box stores when they get these second grade trees, in my opinion. So you want to get a tree from a nice reputable place that has some good nursery stock trees. You want a tree with a nice central leader. You don't want a multi-stemmed tree when it's not supposed to be multi-stemmed. So picking out the tree is very important. When you put it in the ground, probably the most second thing you want to look for is in nurseries, trees are put in the ground a little deeper than what they should be because they don't want them tipping over. They got thousands of trees out in the field. So when your tree is B&B, or what we call balled and burlapped, a lot of times we'll remove the basket from them and the twine in the basket, in the burlap. There's more dirt on that tree than what there should be, and most of the time wherever you get a tree from, that's the case. So you don't want to put a tree in the ground to where the top of the dirt is already. You want to remove that dirt and find a root flare. That's very important. And other than that, the water.
Okay. Well, listen, Todd, this has been very helpful. We're going to wrap up here, but I just want to summarize a couple things. Not only does Todd and Dave's Tree Services remove trees and trim limbs and things like that, but they save trees and they also plant and sell trees as well. And if you're looking at planting a tree, consider Dave's Tree Services for your next tree because they do carry the high quality, high end trees, and he can assist or do the planting for you so that it's done right with the proper soil conditions and everything for that species of trees.
That's right. Yeah, well, absolutely.
It's been very educational this morning. Thank you very much for coming in early into the studio on a Saturday morning and giving us your expertise on trees. It was awesome.
Well, thanks for having me. I hope it helped out.
All right. You've been listening to Ask the Expert with Todd, the Tree Doctor Burke from Dave's Tree Services on 96.7 WBDK.